An American ghost submarine, lost in 1944 off the coast of Japan, is about to surface before you with its story long erased from the charts. What if I showed you how the USS Greyback was found again after more than 70 years of silence under 500 meters of water? At the beginning of 1944, the Pacific roared without respite. The months had shattered the illusion of Japanese invincibility. The Solomons were gnawed away. New Guinea bled. Jungle airstrips filled with smoking wrecks and torn open rations. American forces advanced slowly, island by island, reef by reef. The sea was the real battlefield. Japanese convoys struggled to feed an empire that was too vast. The ocean that was supposed to be a rampart became a trap. The submarine war intensified. In the shadow of the waves, shapes of steel lay in wait, almost invisible, patient. American submarines sailed out of Pearl Harbor, Fremantle, Brisbane. They covered thousands of miles without being seen. They slipped under the sea lanes, sniffed the greasy wakes of tankers, followed the sound of merchant propellers, listened for the sharper pounding of warships. The U.S. Navy had given them a relentless mission: break the traffic, strangle the enemy, close the arteries that carried the lifeblood of Japan to its distant fronts. The submarines were to weave an invisible blockade, torpedo the freighters, demolish the tankers, harass the escorts. They laid mines in narrow channels. They dropped agents on darkened shores. They crept up to unknown beaches to deliver crates of weapons to Allied forces. They also searched for survivors, for pilots downed at sea, exhausted figures waving an arm amid the breakers. Everything converged on a central theater, the East China Sea and the approaches to Japan. There the routes crossed to Formosa, Okinawa, the Ryukyu Islands, then the main archipelago. Through these corridors passed oil, ore, rice, ammunition. Without these routes, the empire would wither. So the submarines plunged into them. They knew the price to pay. The closer one came to Japan, the tighter the defenses drew. Destroyers patrolled, aircraft probed the sea, mines waited in silence. In Groton, Connecticut, on the banks of a cold river, the electric boat shipyard was at work. On April 3, 1940, the men laid the keel of a new submarine. Plates of steel gleamed under the sparks. Rivets snapped, hammers pounded, the hull swelled, section after section. It was only a yard number, a project on paper, but already a profile took shape, a Tambor-class boat. On January 7, 1941, the vessel slid into the water for the first time. Amid shouts, flags, whistles, the dark hull let itself be taken by the current. It was given a name, USS Greyback, hull number SS-208, a long, slender form, nearly 93 meters of metal stretched like a spring. On the surface, its displacement topped 1,400 tons. Submerged, it approached 2,000. It carried in its belly numerous torpedoes, housed in tubes at the bow and stern. On its deck, a gun waited, ready to bark at exposed silhouettes. On June 30, 1941, the Greyback officially entered service. It was now a living ship in the submarine force of the Pacific. It was given a commanding officer, Commander Edward C. Steffen, a submarine officer, a man trained for long silences and split-second decisions. On board, the diesel engines awoke. When the submarine sailed on the surface, these noisy machines drove the vessel forward and charged the batteries. When it dived, everything shifted to electricity. The diesels fell silent, replaced by the discreet breath of electric motors. The hull descended, the light faded, the pressure increased. Operating depth, those dozens of meters it could reach without breaking, became an invisible boundary between life and death. Assigned to the submarine force, Pacific Fleet, the Greyback headed west. Pearl Harbor became one of its home ports, soon joined by forward bases at the end of the world. Fremantle, Brisbane, distant havens where exhausted crews surfaced into the light, where repairs were made, where torpedoes were reloaded, where the missing were counted. When the bombs fell on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, the world of the Greyback was overturned. War was no longer a future threat. It was there, in flames, in the smoke of capsized battleships. The submarine entered the dark dance of the first offensive patrols. These were no longer drills or training games. The torpedoes now carried real death. The nautical charts became hunting maps. From the wide waters off the Philippines to the South China Sea, From the waters near Indochina to the approaches to the Marshalls and the Carolines, the Greyback traces its route, patrol after patrol. First, second, third mission. It is learning its trade as a silent killer. Japanese convoys crisscross these seas, still confident for the time being. At night, from a distance, the crew scans the black silhouettes on the horizon, the careless points of light, the flashes of navigation lamps. In the torpedo room, the men handle the steel cylinders with precise, almost ritual gestures. Over the course of 1942 and 1943, the Greyback makes a name for itself. According to official tallies, confirmed after the war, it sinks transport ships and cargo vessels and damages other hulls. The tonnage increases, silent figures which, behind their dryness, mean columns of smoke, shattered decks, sailors thrown into the sea. It attacks convoys, lies in wait for tankers swollen with fuel, strikes, slips away, endures the pounding of depth charges. The patrol logs record positions, dates, types of targets, lessons learned. Some missions stray from the framework of simple torpedo attacks. The Greyback delivers equipment to isolated Allied forces. It approaches hostile shores. The engines run very low. The vessel glides almost without a sound. The night swallows the conning tower. Shadows climb onto the deck, slip into small boats, reach the shore with crates, sometimes with men who disappear into the vegetation. Sometimes it is the opposite. The submarine takes aboard downed pilots, shivering silhouettes hauled on board, eyes burned by salt and fear, who discover, stunned, the cramped interior of this protective monster. The war recognizes these exploits. Before 1944, the Greyback receives decorations and citations from the U.S. Navy. Its patrols earn battle stars, cold symbols of battles of steel, and the Navy unit commendation is added to its record. In the reports, measured phrases are written down. In the mess halls of forward bases, they talk about this boat that hit hard, that survived full-scale hunts, that comes back battered but alive. On board, the faces gradually change, but the vessel keeps a soul. On the eve of its last patrol, another commander holds the helm, Lieutenant Commander John Anderson Moore. He is born in 1910, growing up in an America still between two wars. He enters the U.S. Naval Academy, learns navigation, ship handling, the cold discipline of gray decks. He chooses the closed world of submarines, this realm of few men and great decisions. His career leads him from post to post toward increasing responsibilities. He builds a reputation as a solid officer, precise, calm under pressure. His decorations reward this blend of cool blood and daring. When he takes command of the Greyback in 1943, the vessel is no longer a novice. The crew, about 80 men on the last patrol, lives packed together inside the narrow hull. Officers, petty officers, specialized seamen, sonarmen glued to their headphones, torpedo men in the forward and aft compartments, machinists in the heat of the engines, helmsmen bent over charts, electricians, radio men, cooks who work miracles with very little space. Everyone knows their station, their actions, their place in this compact war machine. Some of these men already bear, individually, citations for bravery. They have endured depth charging that seemed endless, carried out risky attacks, kept their cool under the pressure of increasing depths and groaning hulls. Their names are written in official documents, sometimes on memorials, but in the moment they are only faces lit by the red glow of the compartments, calloused hands on levers, eyes burned by fatigue. At the end of 1943 and the beginning of 1944, the submarine war reaches a climax in the East China Sea. American commands want to intensify even further the pressure on Japanese routes close to the home islands. The submarines are assigned boulder patrol zones. On the chart, these sectors are rectangles drawn in thick pencil. In reality, they are traps saturated with dangers. Enemy convoys are more numerous there, and the potential gains greater. But enemy destroyers, escorts, and aircraft are on watch. It is in this context that Greyback's 10th patrol is prepared. Orders come down. The mechanics keep watch over the engines. The torpedo men receive their instruments of death. The electricians check the batteries. In the forward base at Brisbane, the bustle is methodical. They load provisions, spare parts, ammunition. They count, they check, they stamp forms. But behind these habitual gestures, a tension lingers, imperceptible. The ship is preparing to penetrate one of the most heavily defended zones in the entire Pacific. The departure date is set. The Greyback leaves its forward base, slips out of the port, leaving behind the quays, the faces, the buildings. The open sea engulfs it. The days that follow see the same unchanging routines: surface watch, training dives, equipment checks. Then, little by little, the latitude changes, the longitude shifts. The ship approaches its new hunting ground. The mission orders are clear. The assigned sector lies in the East China Sea, south of Okinawa, around the Ryukyu Islands. There, the Greyback must intercept Japanese convoys, strike transports, target tankers, report every enemy movement to COM-SUBPAC, the Pacific Submarine Command. Each attack must be followed by a coded message, each convoy sighting reported to the other units. The submarine is not alone. Other American vessels operate in the area, forming an invisible network. The names of some of these shadow companions circulate in official messages. Their hull numbers, lined up in the submarine force documents, speak of a distant brotherhood. They do not see each other, almost never cross paths, but they share the same sea, the same risks, the same solitude, the same enemy. Their coordination passes through the airwaves, brief, measured, encrypted. The Greyback goes on active patrol. The days pass. The first radio signals reach the American listening posts. Short, precise messages. The submarine reports successful attacks, ships sunk, approximate positions. It indicates the state of its torpedoes, the fuel still available, asks for or receives new instructions. COM-SUBPAC acknowledges receipt, notes everything, adjusts the orders. With each transmission, the Greyback emerges like an echo in the vast ocean of war, then fades again, diving back into the silence of the depths. These messages are the last visible traces, at the time, of a ship that is sinking into the unknown. They recount a series of victories, an already heavy toll for the enemy, but behind these figures, no one can yet foresee the approaching end. For while the Greyback hunts, the enemy does not stand still. At the beginning of 1944, Japanese anti-submarine defenses are reinforced, especially there, in the East China Sea. The routes near Japan become a deadly maze. Destroyers prowl, their sonars probing the depths, ready to unleash salvos of depth charges. Smaller escorts complete the net, fast, nervous, capable of pouncing on the slightest suspicious echo. In the sky, seaplanes and land-based aircraft crisscross the sectors, eyes strained for suspicious wakes, oil slicks, the fleeting outlines of a conning tower caught out on the surface. The Japanese also mine their shipping lanes. Invisible minefields drift or remain anchored in strategic areas, lying in wait for the steel hull that ventures a bit too close. A navigation error, a poorly adjusted estimate, and the sea suddenly explodes. The list of American submarines lost in these waters is already growing. Names go dark in the reports, hull numbers, units that no longer respond. They are listed as overdue and presumed lost, after attempts at contact remain fruitless. The dates line up on maps like so many invisible crosses in the dark waters south of Okinawa, around the Ryukyus, toward Formosa. It is there that the Greyback points its bow. The submarine finally reaches its final patrol area. The coordinates assigned by the mission orders correspond to a rectangle of sea that seems empty, but that is saturated with presences. Beneath the surface, currents sweep through dense, cold waters. Above, the sky fills with clouds. In the distance, sometimes, one can make out the deep murmur of convoys, still out of range. The men on board do not know what history will later write. For them, it is just one more patrol. A patrol in a more dangerous zone, closer to the enemy's heart, but a patrol all the same. They check the equipment, prepare the torpedoes, fine-tune the sonar listening. They breathe air saturated with oil and hot metal, endure the lack of privacy, the endless watches, the constant noise of the machinery. They sleep in bunks wedged between torpedoes, under piping, right next to ballast valves. The East China Sea surrounds them. It seems calm at times, flat, smooth, almost peaceful. But this calm is deceptive. All around, without any sailor on the Greyback yet being aware of it, destroyers, planes, and mines form a tight net. The area becomes a trap where the slightest misstep can doom an entire ship. The Greyback keeps moving forward nonetheless, faithful to its orders, faithful to its duty.